Hi lovelies, and welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Janera, and today I'm going to be reviewing Yensa Beauty's new Super Serum Silk Foundation. In this foundation, I am the shade Deep Golden, and this company claims that this formula is supercharged with skin-loving peptides. It also has full coverage and a dewy finish. So if you're interested in seeing the application, the review, and 10-hour wear test of this foundation, then keep on watching. Alright, so first I'm going to use my Beekman 1802 lotion and moisturize my face. Next, I'm going to use 2 pumps of my Fenty Instant Retouch Primer. Next up is the foundation. I'm going to use 1 pump on the right side of my face, and then we'll see how that looks. And then after that, I'll go ahead and add another pump to the other side of my face. This is what 1 pump looks like. And I'll be using the Morphe M439 brush to blend out the foundation. Alright, so this is what the foundation looks like. I want to get close to show you the texture. So far it feels pretty light on the skin. It's definitely a dewy foundation. I can already see that. So I'm going to go ahead and add another pump to the other side of my face. Alright, so this is what the foundation looks like on both sides. As you can see, it's a very dewy formula, which I'm definitely not a fan of, but I'll see what happens when I add my powder. Next, for concealer, I'll be using Too Faced Born This Way Multi-Use Sculpting Concealer. I ran out of my Makeup Forever Full Coverage Concealer, and I saw a whole bunch of makeup artists recommending this one, so I wanted to try it out today. This is the shade Butterscotch, and I'm really excited to try it out just because I've always wanted a concealer that had a stick application. I don't really like using my fingers all the time to apply my makeup. I don't know how much I'm gonna end up needing, but I want to start off light. And then I'm gonna be using my Beauty Blender Pro to blend it out. Alright, so this is what the concealer looks like. I think it's a pretty good shade for me. Next, I'll be using my setting powder from Laura Mercier. This is the shade Translucent Medium Deep. I'm going to use my Beauty Blender Pro to blend it out under my eyes. And then since I have super oily skin, I'll use my IT Cosmetics brush 114 to put the powder all over my face. It'll just help to keep me super dry. Moving on to contour, I'll be using my Anastasia contour kit. I'm going to be using this shade right here. I am running out of this contour, so right now I have my eyes on the Fenty Matchstick. Usually I only use powder contours, and that one has a cream formula, so I'm looking forward to trying that one out. So stay tuned for that, because I'll definitely film it for you guys. The brush that I use to contour is the IT Cosmetics 227. Next, I'll be using my Fenty Beauty bronzer. This is the shade Mocha Mommy. And to blend it out, I'll be using my Morphe M530 brush. However, I don't recommend this brush just because after a year, like there's so many flyaways. I don't know if you can see it on camera, but like every time I use it, like you'll see some hairs on my face. But I do like the shape of this brush. I think it's perfect to apply the bronzer. I'll also be using this bronzer to just add some color to my eyes. Next, I'll be using my Becca Cosmetics highlighter to highlight, and I'll be using my Morphe M510 to blend it out. And just a quick side note about my Morphe brushes, I feel like the brown haired brushes last really well and don't shed, and then the white haired bristles don't last at all, like they shed like crazy. So I would say if you're gonna get Morphe brushes, definitely invest in the ones that have brown hairs and not the ones that have the white hairs. For blush, I'll be using Sweet as Cocoa from MAC, and then I'll be using my Morphe E4 brush to apply the blush. Next, for top liner, I'll be using my Kat Von D Tattoo Liner in the shade Trooper Black. And then for my bottom liner, I'll be using Urban Decay's 24/7 Glide On Pencil in the shade Perversion. Alright, so for my eyebrows, I did use a dark brown eyebrow pencil. I don't remember what brand this is because the writing kind of just rubbed off, but I got it from a beauty supply store a while ago. And lastly, for mascara, I'll be using my Still a Huge mascara. It's my favorite one so far. And I do want to add some lipstick today. I'll be using Fenty's matte lipstick. This is the shade Mademoiselle. This is what it looks like, and I'll swatch it on my hand for you guys. It looks very similar to the Fenty Icon lipstick that I got in the shade Flaunty Auntie. As you can see, this is my favorite type of shade. I added it on lightly, and I don't want to use too much because I want to use my Fenty Gloss Bomb over it. I think the two pair really well together. Alright, so that is it for face makeup today. This is the finished look, and I'll get close so you can see the finish of the foundation. It started off dewy, but then once I added the powder, it definitely became like a natural finish. And then I really like the concealer as well. At first I was feeling like it wasn't as full coverage as the Makeup Forever full coverage concealer that I normally use, but I really like how this one doesn't have any creasing, and it kind of adds like a little subtle highlight under my eyes as well. But yeah, overall I really do like the application of this foundation. It's not really my undertone. I usually have a warm undertone, and I feel like this foundation kind of came off like cool or neutral. But after adding the rest of my makeup on, I feel like it all just kind of goes well together. One thing that stands out to me with this foundation is that even though it's full coverage, it's not too heavy on the skin, which I really like. That's kind of the reason why lately I've been preferring the natural finish foundations, because it doesn't really feel too heavy on the skin. But this one being full coverage, I do like how lightweight it is. But I'll be back in 10 hours and we'll see how this foundation holds up. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Alright, so I'm back with the 10-hour update, and I want to get close to show you how the foundation has held up. Overall, I think it's held up pretty well. I don't see any of my oils coming through in my T-zone. My T-zone is pretty dry, but I was kind of already expecting this foundation to last really well throughout this wear test, just because when the company first sent me this foundation, I was trying to see if it was the right shade. So I put some on the right side of my cheek, and I just put some primer underneath. I didn't set it with setting spray after, but then at the end of the day, I realized it wasn't getting oily, it was just completely dry. So I just knew that once I actually set it with the setting spray that it would do really well. But overall, I really like the formula of this foundation. I think it's really nice that it has full coverage without feeling too heavy on the skin. I really like how this formula has a lot of healthy ingredients included in it as well. The only thing I'm not a fan of is the dewy finish. I feel like when I first put it on, my face was super shiny, but then once I put the setting powder on and the setting spray, then it kind of toned everything down. But I will say though that for a dewy foundation, for my face to be pretty dry at the end of the day is actually really impressive. I think this is probably the first dewy foundation that I've used that at the end of the day my face isn't covered in oil. So I think if you're not a fan of dewy finishes in general, you might want to check out this foundation just because you might have a similar experience where if you put setting powder on and use setting spray, it'll work really well. Because I do think that this formula is definitely worth trying just because of all the healthy ingredients that it has. But as much as I like this formula, there is a huge downside, and that is the shade range. There are only 11 shades in this launch, and I'm the second to last shade. And usually with other makeup companies, bigger makeup companies, there's about 10 shades that come after mine. So I feel like a lot of people might have a hard time finding their true shade. Even for me, the shade does match well well, but it's the wrong undertone. And I feel like if it was the right undertone, like it would be one of my favorite formulas. But as soon as I put it on my hand, I could just tell, like even comparing it to like some other foundations that I have, I could clearly see like it was not a warm undertone. So then once adding like the concealer and the powder, all the other makeup, then it kind of just like blended in well together. But this company did just come out in 2020, so I feel like since they're still new, they're still kind of like trying to figure things out. So I'm excited to see how they will expand their shade range in the future, because it really is a nice formula and I definitely would want everybody to be able to try it out. But overall, I really do like this formula. I definitely recommend it to those of us with oily and combination skin. If you don't really like dewy foundations, then maybe it won't be the right match for you. But I think that if you put like, you know, some powder and setting spray, like it might just work. So I would say don't write it off just yet. Just try it out first and see. And if you have dry skin, you might actually really like this formula, just because I've noticed that with dewy foundations, they tend to work really well with dry to normal skin. But yeah, that's all I have for you guys today. Thank you guys for tuning in to another video. If you have any questions about this Yensa foundation or any of the other makeup that I've used, please let me know and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Also, if you are new here, welcome, and please don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the next video. Bye.